So, business rescue. Let's get to the bottom of exactly what's going on. Conflicting views have emerged in response to the decision by SAA's business rescue practitioners to cancel 11 domestic routes and international routes as well. President Cyril Ramaphosa has come out saying government is not happy with this decision. Responding to different voices, the business rescue practitioners, Matuson and Siviwe Dongwana, issued a statement saying they have noted the concerns of relevant unions, various provincial governments, Public Enterprises Department and the South African Communist Party. They have invited inputs and will include them into the final business rescue plan due to be published by the end of this month. Let's get some more detail on what's going on. Renè Bekker is from the South African Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners Association, and she joins us from our Pretoria studios. Renè, thanks very much for being with us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Leanne. Thank you for the invite.
So let's talk about our business rescue, because I think a lot of people are wondering how this works. It's a relatively new concept for South Africa when it comes to different SOEs. So as it was included in the Companies Act, let's talk to us about business rescue. Firstly, what does it mean when a company is under business rescue?
Thank you, Leanne. Yes, this is it's uncharted territory for a state-owned entity. The Act of 2008 was implemented on the 1st of May 2011, and it is a process whereby a business rescue practitioner, in this case we have two, who have to go into a company, a financially distressed company, and investigate and try and solve the financial problems and try and put a business rescue plan on the table whereby all stakeholders and all affected parties will have a better outcome than in a liquidation scenario.
Yeah. All right. So when we now look at what's going on with SAA, legally, who appointed SAA's business practitioners and who are they accountable to?
Well, we know that the business rescue practitioners were appointed in December 2019 by the stakeholder, in this case the shareholder, the government, and they now have to consult with all affected parties. So it is not a case that the shareholder appointed you and you only now have to listen to the shareholder or the person that appointed you. This is a process, and the process is very well defined in the Companies Act, and they have to go through this process, and you know their independence is sacrosanct, and if they are not allowed to conduct the process without fear or favour, then the integrity of the whole process is will be questioned.
Yeah. So, you know, the unions have been coming out saying that nobody knows what these business rescue practitioners are actually doing. Do you think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding in terms of roles?
I do, Leanne. You know, if we can just take a step back, you know, in the news we could see that that Scopa was putting SAA, the board, under pressure. They had not finalised their financial statements for 2017, 2018 and the 29 period. So in December 2019, when Mr. Dongwana and Mr. Matuson were appointed, they walked in to a company that was financially distressed. They had to interrogate financial information that had not been signed off by auditors for a few years, and as you know, and also consult with all affected parties. So that is a huge task, in my opinion. And of course, they will be communicating with all the stakeholders and. You know, it's only been 2 months, and it is a very large entity. So, perhaps from my side, I would suggest that everyone perhaps just take a breath. I know it is highly emotive. people stand the chance of losing their jobs, and which is heartbreaking. It's not an easy scenario, but we have to give the business rescue practitioners the space to finalise their mandate.
Just in terms of, you talk about they need space, and we understand that, but is there any consultation that should be taking place? Because I think this is at the root of it. When you do have the business rescue team that are working on something, are they the be-all and end-all? Do they make the decisions, implement them without discussing it with anybody else? Because I think that's where the confusion is coming in, and unions are worrying about that.
Of course. No, of course not. You know, the Chapter 6 sets out exactly the duties of the business rescue practitioner. They have to consult, and how and when they consult, of course, depends on the facts of the matter. But no, they don't sit in a room and they make these decisions. There is a process that has to be finalised and gone through, and no, they have to consult with all the affected persons.
Yeah, so there is where the sticking point does come in. So if in fact there was no consultation before these announcements were made with unions, with the SAA board, with even perhaps the president, does it go up to that level? Would you see, because even the president came forward and said that he wasn't happy with the cancellation of the domestic routes, and he was questioning that. Now, do you think he had any forehand knowledge of this or was consulted with?
Leanne, unfortunately, I'm not close enough to the matter to make a comment on that. But, you know, the consultation, the duties are very clear, and there has to be a consultation process, you know, that has to be complied with.
Yeah. Let's talk of the role. What is the role of the SAA board now that the business rescue practitioners are in control?
The management stays in place. The Act provides that management remains, and they will now have work in conjunction with the business rescue practitioners, who have, I like referring to it as a super director, the business rescue practitioners, but they work in consultation with management as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the press release that the business rescue practitioners actually put out, and they go into basically acknowledge some of the concerns that have been put forward by different areas, and they're saying that the BRP has concluded we recognise the concerns raised, especially around the domestic routes. We'll continue to engage with stakeholders with a commitment to include inputs into the final business rescue plan, which is due to be published by the end of this month. So they're basically saying, we hear you, but leave us alone. In a nutshell, we know what we're doing, and what we're doing is trying to ensure that this airline, and they're going to say this, is intended to make the airline commercially and operationally sustainable, free from the requirement of future funding from government, and this is what they are saying. So just leave us alone to do our business. Is that the angle that should be taken?
Leanne, I can't comment on the angle that they've taken. What I understand from that is that they are in the process of putting a business rescue plan together, which will be available by the end of the month. And then, of course, all affected parties can then have a look at the business rescue plan and then voice their concerns. As I said before, this is a huge task. And they are focused on putting a plan together, and in so doing, trying to look at all the different stakeholders and trying to be fair. Unfortunately, we'll look at the final business rescue plan when it is tabled. But I think we know that tough decisions might have to be made, and So I think let's give them the time that they have requested, and let's see what they put on the table.
Yeah, indeed. I know that there is a worry, and some speaking to the fact that if there is interference from different powers, different angles and avenues, whether we talk about the presidency, whether we talk about unions, that this may basically derail the entire business rescue process if there is too much interference. Do you agree with this? I'm not necessarily saying from an SAA perspective, but I'm saying in general, if there is a business rescue practitioner working and there is interference from other parties, can this derail the process altogether?
Yes, hypothetically speaking, if the business rescue practitioners are not provided with the space they need to fulfill their duties, then yes, it may definitely impact on the business rescue process and on the integrity of the process.
Let's talk about creditors. What power do creditors owed by SAA have in this process?
Every class of creditor is an affected party, and they will be granted an opportunity to consult with the business rescue practitioners, and they will be, of course, provided with an opportunity to vote on the business rescue plan.
Also, the practitioners basically said they're committed to include inputs into the final business rescue plan, which we're saying is going to be published at the end of this month. Do you think they're under pressure from all the criticism that they're getting at the moment?
Oh, definitely. I surmise that it's not easy waking up in the morning and reading press releases when such a huge task is at hand. But I have every faith in them. They are very, very competent gentlemen, and they know that they have to focus on the task at hand. So I have faith in them.
Yeah. In terms of job cuts, and I know that you mentioned that at the beginning of the interview, that, unfortunately, hard decisions are going to have to be made. And when you have something like this taking place where there are flights that have been cut, just on a side note, I was at Cape Town International Airport this past weekend, and to not see a single SAA flight was almost surreal. And you wonder what's happened to all the staff. You wonder, where are they? What does their future hold? When suddenly there are so many less flights and things to do, how do you pay these people? And this is the reality. So, in terms of job losses, job cutting, is that a recommendation that you would see coming through from the business rescue industry as well?
Leanne, as I said, I'm not close enough to make that call, but all I've read in the press is that, SAA has been battling financially for 13 years. Losses have been made over those years. As I said before, the integrity of the financial information needs to be looked at. The win-win scenario is that no job losses will be made, but that's unfortunately the tough decisions that the business rescue practitioners must make after they've consulted with all affected persons.
Yeah. This we can understand that. So, with the president actually coming out and saying that he's not happy, would you consider this as an interference and undermining the work of the practitioners?
Leanne, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and of course, as I said before, this is a highly emotive matter. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but as I said before, the business rescue practitioners have a duty to fulfill. They will focus on their duty, their task at hand, and as I said, they're very focused individuals. I doubt whether they will let themselves be derailed. There is a formal process. If a affected person wishes to become involved before the business rescue plan is published, well then they also have rights in terms of the Companies Act, and they will then be, of course, legally advised from their legal advisors.
Just on a final closing note, we know that, we read in Sunday papers, and there was one particularly from from the city press, and I know I'm not asking you to get involved, because I know you're not working on the SAA, so you're speaking from an outsider's point of view as to what's going on. But Labour representatives at the meeting that was with the business rescue practitioners saying that they learnt, and I know you say that there should be consultation, but they learnt of the cutting of these routes through a press release. Is that the responsibility, even though the final business rescue plan hasn't been released as yet? Can they be implementing things the way they are right now? Is that also their job, that they will already cut routes without even consulting and without anybody knowing about that? Can they do that without releasing the final business rescue plan?
Leanne, I can't comment on that. If it's a fact that the unions learnt of the job cuts through a press release, well, then that's something that they will need to take up with the business rescue practitioners. I'm unwilling to
comment, and I can understand that,
unfortunately.
But I think the question, perhaps maybe you could answer, is that during this process, are the business rescue practitioners allowed to make those kind of decisions before they've put out the plan? Is this allowed? Can they stop routes and say, look, we've decided to stop routes?
Leanne, I'm actually not the person. I actually do not know the answer to that question. I actually don't know.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Renè, we needed to ask those questions, and we were hoping you would be able to answer, but certainly not being involved in it, we can understand. But I suppose just getting a broader perspective of what it means for a company such as SAA to be under business rescue and what all of that means, we do thank you for giving us a bit of understanding. Renè Bekker, she's from the South African Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners Association, NPC, talking to us about what's going on at SAA and some of those emotions, of course, that is associated with it. It's very difficult when you do hear things and read things in the media in terms of routes that are being cancelled and what the responsibility is between the different shareholders in SAA. So we'll see going forward what that all entails as this business rescue plan is expected to be released before the end of this month. All right, the time now, 7 o'clock on this, the 10th of February.